Anyway, we're going to be kicking off our best of 5 qualifying match here. Our waterfall, we're in the bottom left-hand corner map, starting on the bottom left-hand corner. We, of course, have our red Terran player coming down from the land of Brisbane. We have a little bit of a Brisbane Bowl coming in here for our qualifying match. He, of course, is going to be representing himself as he's currently teamless. He is Azure. Hi.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Waterfall, we have the Australian Zero player himself representing the CranKy Ducklings. It is Oreo.
Oh. Azure, of course, a player who we've casted many times. He is kind of the jack of all trades. When it comes to the ANZ Terran players, he doesn't have any particular style that he favors over the others. So I have a feeling that we're just going to see him, play towards the strengths of the maps and try to exploit the weaknesses of Oreo here as the series unfolds.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do see that Oreo is already a little bit paranoid, as well as he does send his overlords around the map looking for any kind of proxy coming his way, fully aware that Azure, I'm sure, will proxy at some point in this series, but not willing to do it here in the first game, not on Waterfall, not yet, as we do have plenty of games ahead of us, and for the time being, standard openers.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just gonna suss out what each other's planning to do in this series.
Exactly. I'm just catching up in the chat a little bit. I see that Oreo even jumped in after his game, and he was like, "Guys, I made a mistake. Just don't attack." Against Piglet's mech, at least, attacking is always a mistake.
Yeah. I'm catching up on chat as well. Apparently, it is daylight saving time? Question mark.
That's tomorrow.
Oh, we don't get those here as on the equator. It's the same time every day.
It's the sun never sets.
Ends.
It never rises. It's always perpetually
it's always. I like.
What is the night? Let me sleep.
One of my favorite things about me and Micah going to Valencia. He's like, it's 7 p.m. and the sun is still up. What?
That's crazy. That's actually crazy.
It's like, how does that? Yeah.
The climate shock is real.
Climate change.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, again, so far this game, nothing too crazy. We do see that Azure, is going for his 1-1-1 opener, not going for a more economic style build. Makes sense, especially on Waterfall. He wants to be a little bit more aggressive, wants to be a little bit more active.
Yeah, again, we were talking a little bit about how Waterfall does favor tank pushes quite a bit. And that is a style that Azure does like throwing out every now and then. Going for a bit of a tank drop. Mine drop! Tank drop is the complete opposite of mine drop.
Yeah.
Harass focus.
Yeah, I mean, Azure is approaching this in a really interesting way, as we actually saw this from Runamuck earlier today. If you recall, it's quite possible that maybe they were trading or talking about a little bit about builds here, as Azure is going to be opening up with a bit of a Widowmine drop. Looking at the vision of Oreo, he hasn't really been able to see too much at all so far. I'm a little bit surprised we're at the 4-minute mark and Oreo hasn't gone in with an Overlord. Looks like he has previously, he wants to try and get a bit of a scout off with his Ling instead. Oh,
but he immediately gets denied by the Hellions here of Azure. Oreo, man, he doesn't have detection. He doesn't have any spore crawlers at this mineral lines.
Yeah, there are no spores. There is no detection. The Overlord is going to try and dip in now. Unfortunately, there also weren't any scouting links outside of the main base. The drop is headed out towards the top right-hand corner. We do have one spore on the way in the main.
Yeah, but I fear that it is going to be too late here. I do love how Oru's utilizing his Lings, just preventing any sort of Yeah, just preventing any sort of unloading here from the medevac, but he needs to keep his eyes on it!
Oh my god, here we go. The medevac does boost on in. Looks like the medevac will go down in the end, but the Widowmines do burrow.
Yeah, thankfully for Oreo, this is the base that had detection, so it could have been a lot worse for him, honestly.
Yeah, it really could have. The Widowmine here towards the triangular base as well, almost getting a second shot off, but it does get focused down in the end. Oreo, despite not scouting this, despite reacting very late to it, he did respond incredibly well.
Yeah, and now the ball's really in his court. I mean, he didn't take that much economic damage. He's getting his 4th base up and running. He's getting his lair tech. We're transitioning into the late game, and Azure hasn't been able to deal the damage that he wanted to, but he is very aggressively throwing down more and more production. Are we even going to see a 3rd base anytime soon from him?
Man, I don't think so. Oh my god, we've got 5 Raxes already here on 2 bases. Again, I'm just getting so many run amok vibes right now, just because of how he played out his series against Oreo earlier today. Very reminiscent indeed, as Azure is just making as many units as possible. It's going to be on Oreo right now to try and get eyes on things, to try and figure out whether or not there will ever be a 3rd.
And I highly doubt that. Azure just once again doing such a good job of denying the scouting information here for Oreo. But Ling!
Yeah, as you say that, Ling does move out. Ling checks the 3rd base, confirms nothing is there, doesn't see the reinforcements, doesn't quite get eyes on the push, but Oreo hasn't been droning above 63. He doesn't want to be too greedy. He even just immediately evacuates the space.
Yeah, he knows he's going to have to forfeit it, and anyway, he has another base where he can transfer all these workers to, covering the linear location.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, he's going for a bit of a surround as well. The tanks are left completely exposed here, but no, he doesn't commit in the end. The Marines were able to double back in time, and Oreo hasn't really been able to get too much here. Even going for a counterattack, we have reinforcements back at home.
Yeah, this is smartly done here by Azure, not immediately sending his reinforcements across the map. He is just making sure that he can get away with a little bit of defense. He knows that this is what Oreo likes to do in TBZ when he's being pushed.
Oh, exactly. So very well executed here by Azure. From here, if he wanted to, he could try and throw down a 3rd CC and expand, especially, you know, since he should be able to get a kill in this space, but no, he doubles down. He's getting more Liberators to reinforce with his army, and he leaves the base alive. He's rotating around instead.
Oh. Okay, now he's doubling on it. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, a very interesting choice to just leave it alone, but he knows that it's vulnerable. He might as well take it out.
It's a very slow and methodical way to go about it, which I appreciate, but at the same time, he's also giving Oreo a lot of time to build up an army.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time again from Oreo against Piglet, against Runamok, against even Seether. If you give Oreo a little bit of time to build up his defenses, he will absolutely crush any sort of Terran push coming his way.
Yeah, exactly. We saw a full surround there. The harassing Lings of Oreo, they turned around, they came back home, and he swallows up that army. Azure did clear up a lot of creep, and he did get a hatchery, but Oreo didn't really lose too many workers at all.
I don't think he lost any workers throughout that entire process. I mean, he lost his base, which is decent, which is good here for Azure, but immediately Oreo retook another base in a different location, and he's waiting for the coast to be cleared to take that 5th base once again.
Yeah, once again he goes for another Ling run by. He confirms the 3rd CC is being built, so he now knows that Azure is attempting to transition, so now is the time to drone, but for the time being he also knows how late that 3rd is, and that if he focuses on Ling Bane, he won't just be able to defend, he'll also be able to deny any kind of 3rd.
Yeah, go for the counterattack whenever he needs to. Full surround on top of these tanks. They do get a couple of good shots off on the Banelings themselves, but yeah, now that they're dead, there's really nothing sustaining the Marines of Azure. Trying to go for a bit of a doom drop into the main, but this is still a big risk to make.
Well, I mean, he has to take a risk right now because of how far behind he is. So he takes out, what, 2-3 Overlords? Not bad at all. He stims on forward. There are no Banelings here in the main base to defend. At the same time, reinforcements are hitting the 4th base of Oreo.
And we do see there's a lot of anti-air here right now for Oreo, so Azure having a very fun time just diving back and forth between the bases. Fourth will go down, or fifth rather will go down.
Yeah, the fourth does go down, and we even have a tank on the back line. I'm not too sure about this tank because it is going to go down almost for free, getting a couple of shots off towards the end. But Azure is pulling Oreo apart successfully. He's also forcing Oreo to stay at home, and this is going to give an opportunity here for Azure to finally expand and take a third.
Just like so. For the first time in this game, I think Oreo is behind in the army supply. So he's not quite able to punish that third yet.
Yeah, exactly. Oreo having a really hard time here keeping up with these drops. He is going to be able to split up his army. Finally does deal with the drop in the main base. Has another force here on the left-hand side to make sure the double drop doesn't get out of hand either. This is great and all, but again, it took a really long time for this to happen. And look at that drone count. Look how many drones Oreo has lost so far.
He went from 60 workers, super safe, down to 45. Just about every advantage Oreo had in this game has been neutralized.
And the longer things go on where Oreo is not making drones, he's forcing himself more and more all in.
Yeah, which I feel like he doesn't really need to be right now, but then again, it is kind of difficult keeping up with all the multi-pronged harass coming up from Azure.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, we do have one drone on the way, but like, this may just be too late. At this point, Azure does have an economic lead right now. There are no queens to swat away these medevacs, so Azure, he's just having fun at this point. Just even dropping on the low ground.
Because why the hell not? You know, let those Marines shoot in the air and let the bullets fall to the ground on top of these Lings and Banes.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Oreo is getting ready for a massive counterattack. It looks like with Ling Bane coming in from two angles, he can get a decent connection here, and he does get into the mineral line. No reaction.
Yeah, 6 SCVs go down. Could have been a lot worse, so for Azure, Oreo does take a bit of a worker lead, and he's slowly remaking his bases. I worried about this base, though, right outside the base of Azure.
Yeah, very aggressive hatchery is being taken, but I mean, what other base can Oreo take, to be honest? I guess the rich gas base here on the left-hand side may be a little bit more appealing. He cannot take the triangular third just because of this double drop. Like, there's just no way for him to really expand there.
And so you get no way to expand there. Azure does scout the 5th base location. Lings and Banes are going to be crashing on in. The Banelings are waiting, looking for targets to connect with, but they don't quite find them. The Lings do take out a couple of tanks, but I don't think that's enough damage done here for Oreo.
Yeah, honestly, we had some great tank spread and some great splitting here from Azure, just receiving that push. He takes down the Ling Bane, he takes down the hatchery as well. The drop is still alive. Oreo just has never been able to deal with it. He's been stuck on just pure Ling Bane. His queen count has never been that impressive either. 7 queens are not bad. They're enough to inject and spread some creep, but he just hasn't really been able to deal with any of these drops.
Yeah, in fairness though, Azure is playing a little bit like Caesar here, where he just has a ton of medevacs. So, you know, Oreo does have a little bit of a lead when it comes to effective army supply. It's just Azure isn't really leaving himself vulnerable to allow Oreo to take advantage of that.
Yeah, exactly. And Oreo is still actually choosing not to drone. He's still stuck on a very low drone count, still struggling to deal with this, and yeah, he's not going to be able to. Like, it's insane how much this quad drop has done this game. It's actually disgusting. Like how much damage has been dealt, killing the 4th base, killing workers, killing Lings, killing Banelings. Oreo trying to expand, but I don't know if he ever will. At least now he has a force here to try and deal with this army. Ugh.
So anti-air, great target firing from Azure, right on top of all those Banelings. The Lings will get evaporated as well. Oreo forced to cancel the base once again.
And eventually Oreo will be able to expand here eventually. Oh god, but it's gonna take quite some time. He's still stuck on 4 bases. Azure basically even in bases right now, about to get his 4th up and running and back to get it saturated. At least there is a lot of creep spread here at the triangular third of Azure, and it is gonna slow him down a little bit, but I'm waiting for the tech of choice for Oreo. We see it. It's not gonna be Hydras. He's going into an infestation pit.
Huh. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Light. I would have expected to see Hydras coming out from Oreo just to have some way of shutting down the drops, but instead he's just trying to get the hive tech as quickly as can be.
Yeah, very. It looks like he wants to go into at least a very efficient army, incorporating some spellcasters. I imagine this is not for infestors, but for vipers, for a hive. But we'll see. Either one could work. Either one does work well with Ling Bane, and vipers do even have parasitic bombs to deal with these drops and deal with these medevacs. But yeah, just not a very gas intensive army that Oreo is looking for. Oof.
Yeah, which I guess kind of makes sense. I mean, he's been starved out from his bases for a very, very long time. He has a lot of minerals. He has a lot of mineral mining right now. Not so much when it comes to gas.
Yeah, he doesn't even have his gas here at his third base either. He's opted not to go for it. We do see that Hive is the tech of choice, so he wants to go into Vipers, and they can work wonders. Meanwhile, there's only one tank here to defend, so Oreo is finally going to find some damage.
Yeah, the tank surprisingly stays alive, but the Banelings and Lings do crash on top of the Planetary Fortress and will shut it down. It's a start here for him.
It is a start, but I'm also surprised at how much Ling Bane was spent trying to attack and how little Oreo has to work with when it comes to his economy. He's going to have actually a hard time rebuilding what he just traded away.
Yeah, and on top of that, he's also getting Hive Tech, so... yeah, it's gonna be difficult to sustain his army one way or another. It's definitely very, very weird how he got to this point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, thankfully for Oreo, Azure has also had a hard time expanding and actually having a strong economy. I was praising him earlier when he got his fourth up and running, but after losing it, he didn't really have a CC to replace it. So he's also in a really awkward position. He's going to have a very strong 3-3 timing, but before that happens, Oreo still has map control, and now I do believe he hasn't gone for Vipers yet, just still pure Ling Bane.
Yeah, he's even getting Cracklings as well. Doesn't really have the gas to spend to get his 3-3 just yet. But what are you thinking, like? Do you think maybe Ultras could be a good idea from here? He's already getting melee. There we go, yeah!
Ask and you shall receive. So Ling Bane straight into Ultra. Usually, if we see this, it's more of like a rush into Ultra and a faster Hive, but like this game has just been so wonky and so weird. It took a really kind of weird turn to get here. Unfortunately for Oreo, we already have Liberator production for Azure. That's exactly what you want against Ultras.
Yeah, Liberators, Ghost Academy finished up. No Ghost yet, but that's mostly Azure is already maxed out. Decent connection on a couple of these Banelings, but yeah, enough of the Marines that survived to continue to wreak havoc here.
Yeah, at the same time, we do have a triple drop here on the right-hand side. Isn't going to find too much damage either, but it's just keeping Oreo busy, keeping him back at home, forcing more Ling Bane to be created. At least now his worker count's much healthier. 73 drones isn't bad at all. And now this is where we have to kind of criticize Azure a little bit, because his own worker count has been insanely low this game.
Look, 40 SCVs, that's all you need.
Maybe.
Fuel the rest of them. Yeah.
Oh my god, I mean, his army's insanely large because of it. Like, that's a big boy army if it all is able to come together.
If. We were talking about it, but Waterfall is not quite as defensible as a map like Data Sea or Tropical Sacrifice, and we can see why a little bit here. Azure is forced to split up his army between so many isolated bases.
But you know what? He's actually finding a lot of damage here again. The power of 3-3 Bio. Finally, Ling's going to get a decent round on those Marines. Meanwhile, towards the top, again, Oreo's having a hard time keeping up with all of this. And I'm just so shocked that Azure is getting away with such a light worker count. He can eventually, of course, take another base.
40 SCVs. What more you need? Just mule for it.
Just mules, man. That's all you need. Meanwhile, another drop here towards the top. I believe the Ultras may have just been scouted. There we go. They are confirmed here from Azure, and he just continues that lib production.
Yeah, kind of splitting, not done just yet here for Oreo, so he still has to wait a little while before he gets really active with his Ultras.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, that was a kill, not a cancel on that fresh base of Oreo. At the same time, there's no way for him to deal with these liberations, so the freedom zones come in, and Oreo has to give up on this base. He goes all in across the map. He just aims with his Ling Bane and Ultras.
And you know what? The Banelings are finding some connections, but nowhere near enough of them, it seems. Oreo trying to remax right now, but he is completely out of a bank.
Yeah, there is no bank, there is no army, there is nothing left. We have Banelings rolling into the main base, but there's nothing left for them to kill as he loses more of these bases. Oreo, just a really rough start to this game and this series. I don't want to say that Waterfall is really indicative of how this series will go, but like specifically Azure has been able to get into his stride, and this is going to be an important win for him because historically Azure has had a really hard time mentally against Zerg players, but this is going to be a great kind of like booster shot for him.
What now?
Yeah, like adrenaline shot, I think that's kind of what I was going for. Yeah.
Straight to the heart.
Straight into the heart, mate. Getting momentum in this series is something that Azure desperately needs, and it looks like he's going to get it. So we do see that Oreo has survived this long. He actually keeps his base alive. He's going to get a little bit more mining, but look at that suit, mate. Look at it.
It ain't lying. Azure is essentially maxed out, and Oreo still struggling to maintain over half of his own supply cap.
Yeah, exactly. The army is massive. It's insane. It's throwing made as Azure stims on 4. That's like the 4th kill on that base, by the way. God.
I just realized that these mines, by the way, have just stayed here entirely throughout this entire game. And now it looks like Azure is finally going to be able to bang down the nails in that coffin. It was a very slow, very methodical game for him, but we've reached a point where Oreo is completely bankrupt and he doesn't have an answer to the Marine medevac army.
Yeah, it's not about just winning the game for Azure. It's about sending a message. It's about breaking the morale of his opponent. G gets called, and Azure takes the first game.
Very, very methodical.
Yeah, as a reminder, this all started off of a 2-base all-in, essentially. A 2-base all-in that initially wasn't dealing damage, but then when the drop play started coming into play, yeah, Oreo was having a really, really hard time keeping up.
Yeah. It's kind of one of the advantages of Waterfall here, especially in a TVZ. The bases, while there are fewer of them, they are a little bit more isolated from one another, so yeah, it can take a while between getting back and forth, despite how small the map actually is.
Yeah, exactly. That's also why, like, I was gonna say that's also why I'm a little bit surprised that this map made it through the vetoes, but at the same time, it's a best of 5. You only get 1 veto each, so there are other maps that you do want to kind of get rid of first.
I'm surprised Oreo didn't try to go for a road rush this time.
True. Yeah, I guess he didn't want to be too predictable, because he has literally roach rushed every other game on Waterfall, so he wanted to keep his opponent on his toes. But alas, due to that, Azure was able to get into his game, able to execute beautifully, and now he's up 1-0 in this best of 5.
Yeah, that's right.
Your mind is it's devolving into Ryan right now. It's that's right.
Yeah. Hey, old AFL.
Oh god. Alright.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Don't sub light in for me XD. That's what Azure is saying. Over here.
Yeah, just getting things ready.
Getting it all sorted.
Oh, as we are going to be continuing on in our series here, getting into game number 2. Oh, and that was game 1 was a long one, man. Longer than I think both of us thought it was gonna be.
It was. Yeah, surprisingly, I think it was the longest game so far in the. I think Seether versus Oreo on Moondance was a little bit longer, but it was certainly longer than any of the games in the Piglet series. Anyway, we're going to be continuing our series now on data under the sea. In the top right-hand corner map, starting all the way in the top right-hand corner, we have our red Zerg player coming out from the land of Brisbane. He's, of course, the reigning king of Brisbane, who has returned to reign in that regard. He's representing our very own team, the CranKy Ducklings. He is Oreo.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of data under the sea, we have the Australian Terran player himself representing himself. It is Azure.
Hi.
Leading this series 1-0, Papi. And yeah, quite a game, number one. A very unique game, though, is what I would say. Like, a lot came into play there because it was waterfall, because it's such a small map. It's so difficult for the Zerg player to expand and give up bases without it really impacting him too greatly. So we saw Oreo really struggling to take bases, really struggling to drone up, really struggling to get an economy going once Azure had that momentum.
Yeah, TVZ has always kind of been about that map control momentum. You know, two players. That's usually what you're fighting for initially in the matchup, but now more than ever in this current meta, it really feels like getting that momentum in the early game is even more important.
Yeah, it is key, mate. And speaking of getting momentum in the early game, Azure is going for a very interesting opener here. I believe he went for am I crazy? Was this a CC first?
It was in fact a CC first.
It was a CC first into 2 racks, mate. Oh my god.
Yeah, may as well.
So very greedy play coming out from Azure. Again, ideally this does work well against, I believe, a pool first, because by the time the Lings get here, because it was a CC first, the CC would already be done. Oreo just went for a standard hatch gas pool opener though, so Azure isn't going to necessarily be punished. And likewise, Azure also won't have any scouting information as he does skip his Reaper.
Yeah, just a single safety marine, and from there he is just going to throw down his add-ons. Now, what are you thinking? Like 2-on-1 or 3 racks? 2-on-1. Okay, that's him.
Yeah, we should be seeing a bit of a 2-on-1 here from Azure. We'll see what the third building is going to be. But there it is. There is that factory. And from here, I mean, again, Azure is going to be playing a little bit in the dark, but so is Oreo. Oreo is going to be going across the map, recognizing, hold up, you didn't send a Reaper across the map. What exactly is going on here? You already have an orbital. You already have a couple of Marines. I see.
Yeah, I see all. You went for a bit of a cheeky CC first. I should have 12.
Oh god, it's too late for that, Papi. It is all too late for that. And oh boy, now we are just now Azure, he's been able to get away with his opener for the time being, and now Oreo has to get ready for that 2-1-1. This, I believe, is going to hit a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, just because of the because we didn't have to waste any time with the Reaper or anything like that. We're going to have that many more Marines available. And Oreo has to be careful and make sure he doesn't turn up too heavily, and he's prepared for that drop.
Yeah, he's in a ton of Lings to be able to deflect this.
Exactly. So far, the Overlord spread is looking on point. Oreo is even slipping into the main base with his Overlord. Again, he actually doesn't know if this is a 2-on-1 or a 3 racks. Not yet, but now he will see this, as he does see the add-on swap, and he does confirm the starport and the factory.
Yep. Sees the production, knows that it's going to be 2-on-1, or at least confirms that it's going to be 2-on-1. I like to believe he knew it all along. But he didn't confirm it, you know?
Yeah.
Between knowing and knowing.
And now he does know. Meanwhile, as soon as the Overlord dies, we see a third CC behind this, so Azure is going to be fully prepared for a transition. He's also pulling a little bit of a Bjorn, so he's going to be a little bit more aggressive by moving out before the medevacs are even done. The medevacs are actually going to meet up with the army instead.
Yeah, you don't want to delay whatsoever. When you're doing this variant of the 2-on-1, immediately Azure jumps on top of these queens, Target's wearing them down very, very well.
Exactly, one queen does go down. A couple of tumors get picked off as well by these Marines. We are now ready. We do have stim. Combat shields is a bit of a way off, but again, Azure, I imagine, doesn't want to really commit too hard up this ramp. Is just containing his opponent, just threatening Oreo.
Yeah, he is more than happy to just keep Oreo on these 3 bases and force more and more Lings and Banes out of him while he expands and macros up back at home. This isn't the most committed push coming out from Azure. Again, this is just 2 medevacs full of Marines.
Yeah,
he doesn't need to deal damage with it yet.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't have to commit, basically. And he's been doing a really good job at just maintaining himself, not overextending, not pulling the trigger too early. Meanwhile, back at home, we were talking about that 3rd CC. It's now an orbital, now ready to be landed on location 1-1 on the horizon. Very careful, very patient play. Honestly, I've been really impressed by Azure here.
Yeah, as have I. I mean, not being overly aggressive or anything throughout this series. Again, it's just very methodical play coming out from him, you know. Rotating around the bases, that's what the word I was looking for. And just try to find little weak spots in Oreo's defenses.
He even catches another active creep tumor as well. You could argue that when you open up with a 2-on-1 like this, you need to deal more damage, and I think normally I would agree, but I think for the time being, I'm kind of content with what has already been gotten with the amount of Ling Bane that he's forcing. The only thing that he has to be worried about is that Bailing speed timing.
Yeah, you see it over there. I mean, Azure hot picked up right last second, but if Bailing speed was finished, I don't think he'd been able to hot pick up at all.
Exactly. Meanwhile, we just see that. And we just see Azure trying to abuse that tank spot here towards the north, but that does trigger Oreo's push. He does dive on top of the tank immediately. He gets on top of all these Marines, and Oreo is just going to shut this down. Azure, again, this tank spot behind this kind of ravine here is so abusable, and as soon as Oreo recognized what was happening, mate, he just pulled the trigger.
Yeah, might as well go for the counterattack. Why not?
Yeah, so he was able to just shut that down before it really got set up. Meanwhile, Azure now a little bit on the back foot here. He does have 1 tank to defend. Meanwhile, he's going for a bit of a drop at the same time, so he's not going to have everything at home for this counterattack. And honestly, the SimCity is lacking as well.
Yeah, a lot of wide open spaces on this map. The Banelings crash into SCVs, pretty much deleting the economy of Azure. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, Oreo is just able to remax on whatever the hell units he needs. Mostly Lings, a couple of Banes, and also a couple of Hydras just to deal with drops.
Yeah, speaking of drops, we do have that 1 drop into the main base. Azure just lost an entire mineral line. He has a lot of catching up to do. It looks like he's going to be able to force lost mine time here in the main at least. Doesn't get too much damage though. At the same time, he goes for a bit of a run by towards the 4th, but Banelings are waiting for him.
Yeah, good target firing once again coming out from Azure, but not good enough.
Oh, as he gets 2 high energy queens there, a little bit of a miss rally by Oreo, a little bit of awkward pathing there in the end. Meanwhile, this drop is still active. More tumors are getting focused down. Shouldn't really be able to do much more damage here just because of the sheer amount of Ling Bane. But Oreo, after winning that fight earlier, after going for the counterattack, he has just so much more freedom to drone up. He has so much more freedom to be a little bit more willing to invest into his economy, into his tech.
Yeah, he might as well drone up while he'd still get away with it. There are a couple of drops coming out from Azure, but Oreo's already prepared for them. I mean, that medevac goes down, full of passengers.
Oh god, yeah, the full medevac does go down. That means Oreo doesn't have to worry about anything here on the right hand side. He can focus his entire attention here on the triple drop at his 4th. The hatchery is a little bit low, but I mean, it's still alive, and we should be seeing some more creep here being thrown down by those queens. And Oreo was free to tech up. Hydras are already out. Lurker Den on the way.
Yeah, love to see it. So the time and place for Hydras, that time is before 10 minutes. That place is right on top of the Terran army, pretty much.
Yeah, Azure's a little bit on the back foot. I mean, thankfully, because of all these drops, he has forced Oreo to stay at home. So Azure has, for the most part, been unmolested, attempting to take his fourth. But specifically on day to C, it's not about the fourth. It's about whether you can even get a fifth. Oof.
Yeah. Fourth base is not quite enough to sustain a Terran army. 5, however, that's a sweet spot.
There we go. Fifth CC is on the way out. We have 2 longer dens, actually. Oh my god.
1 upgrade at a time, or 2 upgrades at a time. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. We can get into that double upgrade timing. I don't know if this is intentional, but we'll see if Oreo actually make use of this. It'll be interesting if he does. Meanwhile, he is looking to max out here on Ling, Bane, Hydra, Azure. Trying to be active, but again, there is no pressure on Oreo. There is no reason to move out unless Azure tries to expand and take a fifth.
Yeah, which he should be planning to do, but for now, his 5th base is just halfway done, pretty much.
Yeah, meanwhile, honestly, a really great run by here. He's going to lose a lot of Marines, but he did get a kill on the 6th base of Oreo, so at least he was able to get that. Did cost him a lot of Marines, though, so I'm not too sure if it was worth it in the end. I guess whatever you can get done, right? Like, Azure, he has some punching up to do.
He really does. But that's why... that's why it's so important for the Terran player to be able to slow the game down to a crawl. Nidus popping out right now for Oreo, though, could put a wrench in those plans.
Oh, it really could. Meanwhile, a couple of stray queens are getting picked off here on the right-hand side. I love that we actually do have a double upgrade timing for these lunkers. So, yeah, maybe actually completely intentional here from Oreo. You love to see it. This is actually very nicely lined up and timed with the Nidus. So the Nidus is going to finish up as we finish up the lurker upgrades, and we could have a couple of ways into that main.
Yeah, I'm looking at some potential exposed areas of the center towers for an overlord or something to sneak on in. Thinking transformed lings potentially, or looped up lings. You don't even need a changeling for that.
Yeah, that's the thing that we're kind of missing right now, is that Oreo does have a great upgrade timing with the Nidus, but we actually don't have any vision to make use of the Nidus. So yeah, Oreo can't really make full use of that right now. He's still just preoccupied dealing with all these drops. Finally does force them back. 3-3 on the way here. Ghost, though, also on the way for Azure, so he's going to have an answer to lurkers. We need more than just Ghost, though.
Yeah, Liberators would be absolutely key here for clearing out lurkers.
Liberators are what you want, libs and tanks both, so we'll see if we can get them. Meanwhile, Azure on his way to actually expand and take this 5th base, and this is going to be the cue for Oreo. Now the pressure is on him to try and do some damage, to try and deny some bases. Here we go, he pulls the trigger, he does get on top of some of these Marines, but he cannot push up this ramp.
Yeah, not with all those tanks defending it.
Exactly, he's forced back. He does have a couple of lurkers here, but honestly not too many. He's going to try and dive on top of some of these drops. In the end, the Medivacs do get away scot-free. Second Nidus on the way. Double Nidus all the way, Bappy.
Huh. Wait. Is there a reason to get 2 Nidus Worm ends?
Yeah, it means that you can throw down 2 Niduses at once. I didn't know that. Yeah. So it means that you can either pull away your opponent's attentions to make sure that at least one of them gets up, or you can throw down both Niduses in the same place just to make sure that even if there's, say, 1 tank in range, it can only destroy 1 Nidus and the other will finish.
Yeah, let's see what Oreo opts for, as Azure goes for a little bit of a doom drop. There are already lings patrolling the area, however, and there are also a couple of spore crawlers. Unfortunately, they don't do enough to really deter the drop from landing.
Yeah, the 3-3 buy was just a little bit too good here. Meanwhile, it is going to be forced to pick up. There's the double Nidus into the main base. Looking at the vision of Azure, he does take note. He does notice it now. He's going to try and respond here with a couple of Marauders.
Yeah, but it's not quite going to be enough now, is it? Huge unloading of the Nidus will will reveal a couple of lurkers that immediately get burrowed.
Yeah, and now we have to see a massive response here from Azure. All the ghosts do turn around at the same time. A bailing runback trying to be set up here at the fifth base, but it doesn't quite make it in. Regardless, these lurkers are doing a lot of damage. Oh.
Yeah, finally get sniped. But not before 15 SCVs go down.
Exactly. The base and 15 SCVs did go down. Again, enough of a distraction was caused for Oreo to pull the trigger. I apologize for missing that, by the way. Look, both Yaku and I, we are quite tired.
Yeah.
Look, Yaku, we got one series left and we can get through it.
We got
papi.
one series. We can do it. Let's go.
We can do
I'm
it,
out of
papi.
coffee,
We can do it. Oh, the Viper goes down.
It does get sniped by the Marine, so pretty worth it, I would say, from those medevacs.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, from those.
Yeah.
From the medevacs.
Yeah, from the jump.
Yeah. Pretty well worth. Yes. I was like, wait. Wait. Did medevacs get sniped or did the Viper get sniped? No,
They
Viper
both
got sniped.
Everything,
They both got sniped. There we go.
Everything got sniped, Yaku. Everything's getting sniped.
Even the ghosts.
The ghosts are here as Oreo tries to force himself up the ramp, but he cannot do it. Azure reestablishing that fourth base. We do see that Oreo is dancing here with the army, but merely dancing. He doesn't want to overcommit. He does have quite a large bank already working on up here for Oreo. Ooh, looking for an opportunity to dive on top of the ghost. But right now, he's buying time for his Greater Spire, for his Broodlords.
Yeah, once again, we saw a little bit of it in the previous series against Run Amok, but the Broodlords are really the end game unit here in this scenario of ZvT.
Oh, exactly. Meanwhile, once again, we have double Nidus in the natural base. One Nidus goes down, but all we need is at least one of them to get up and running. We have some lurkers. We have some lings. Azure is being pulled apart right now. Damage is being done here in this base. We even have more Niduses finishing up just to send out more reinforcements and even to make sure we can evacuate these lurkers as well, just in case. The ghosts are here at home. That means they're not here on the front line.
Yeah, that was a trade that Oreo definitely wanted to take, but not quite yet. I mean, he's remixing now on a couple of links and a couple of banes, but he needs to find a way to use up his supply without leaving himself too open in order to get those root lords that he needs.
Yeah, and he's just so relentless here. Like, I mean, the ghosts are going to clean everything up eventually, you know? I mean, they're ghosts. They're the answer to all these units. But, you know, they can only ever be at one place at a time. And they're, again, Oreo's just doing a great job at just forcing them to be here, not on the front lines, back all the way at home, back in the main base as he sets up for this push. The Vipers have been remade. They are stocked up full of energy.
Yeah, I've been sucking on that youth juice, and I don't see too many tanks here. I see only 4 of them. 5 of them.
It's been a while since I've heard anyone say that. Oh my god. Come back to us, Bill. Come back. As these Vipers aren't the only... I'm gonna say that, never mind. As Orio's gonna force himself up this ramp. A couple of blinded clouds are thrown down here to try and cover these tanks. But the tank spread is looking pretty good, but not good enough.
Yeah, a couple of tanks also even hidden right in medevacs of Azure. So Oreo hasn't quite been able to identify his targets for blinding clouds and whatnot. Azure still has a massive army supply lead, and he's still going to make use of it.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like Azure's kind of forcing himself all in right now. He just cannot establish this 5th base. There's a reason why we brought it up, and we maybe should have put more emphasis on it earlier. Like, when it comes to the Terran player on Data C, it's all about whether they can get a 5th base up and running. If they can, then we're going to end up in a split map scenario. We're going to end up in a very long game. If he cannot, well, that's a win condition here for Oreo to just keep hammering away at this position, sending wave after wave after wave of 200 supply Ling Bane. That's exactly what he's been doing. That's exactly what's winning him this game.
Yeah, a little bit trickier up against this ramp when there are tanks waiting in the back line, but still pretty worth it. Just because he was able to take out a couple of ghosts and a couple of tanks.
Yeah, unfortunately, there were no overseers here with the army, so because that Oreo had to back off, there we go. The overseers are being remade. He's taking every other base on the map. His saturation is looking quite good here at 90 drones. And Azure, after every fight, he really does struggle to remax. He does struggle to remake, and he struggles to deal with these Niduses.
Yeah, he just keep popping out, mate. one after another. These lurkers are the absolute MVP of this game.
They really are. Finally, this is going to get cleaned up. Not before, again, wreaking some havoc, causing some chaos, dealing some damage in said main base. Oreo getting ready for a little bit of a Ling run by, a bit of a Ling surround even. And yo, those Broodlords we were talking about, the Broodlords, they're coming out.
That's a win condition here. Slowly, they're going to be making their way across the map. And I don't think Azure really has an easy answer to them. I mean, he's got Liberators, he's got Marines, but he doesn't have any tanks. Okay, he could try to snipe me with the Ghosts, I guess, but they're not quite in position yet.
Yeah, like, Ghosts are the ideal answer here against these Broodlords, but it's always about positioning, and at the moment, he doesn't really have his tanks or Liberators set up offensively to really cover these Ghosts whenever the Broodlords come out. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to see how this works. Meanwhile, Oreo, I'm sure, is going to be keeping this Ling Bane in the backline, waiting for these Ghosts to expose themselves.
Oof, like so. Okay, maybe not quite like that.
Yeah, as the Ghosts aren't exposed, apparently it's the Broodlords. Here we go. Finally, Oreo, he turns around. He wants the Ghosts.
Will get a full surround. The Banelings do crash onto some of them. Most of them.
Most, but not all. I don't know if that was really worth it in the end for Oreo. He's going to lose a lot of his Ling Bane. Azure's going to stem on forward. He's breaking on through. Oreo lost a lot of resources when the Broodlords were all killed, when they were all sniped earlier. Maybe it was just too soon to take into them.
It definitely seems that way. As more and more Lings get popped out of Nice to once again continue to try to keep Azure's worker count down, but I think you mentioned at the start, Light, it is absolutely insane how efficient Azure has been with his low economy.
Yeah, it's crazy how efficient he's been. It's crazy how Azure has been able to make these like low worker count armies really like work to his benefit here. Just how the sheer number of his army supply is insane. He breaks on through, he takes down another hatchery. Oreo does have time to rebuild, but he really doesn't have a bank.
That he does not. He doesn't really have the supply cap either. He doesn't really have much larva. He doesn't have much of anything right now.
He really does not. Oreo's gonna pull the trigger once again, but no, he just cannot find a way in. Azure, he doesn't just have a 5th. Now he has a 6th.
And it's a rich Vespean 6 as well.
Boy, a very, very important base to take here. Oreo forced to back off, forced to go back to the drawing board. He has so much gas right now, so much gas, but he can't actually use it. He doesn't have enough minerals to make use of it.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part where, well, not every unit in StarCraft costs minerals. No, wait, not every unit costs gas. All of them cost minerals.
Exactly. Without minerals, you can't spend your gas. Here we go, Azure rotating over to the left-hand side for the first time. Very little creep spread was set up here. One hatchery goes down immediately, and we're going to see more than just one hatchery go down.
Yeah, we're going to see just about every single hatchery go down here. Oreo's army, I mean, Oreo has the tools he needs to defend against this. If he can get lucky and get just a really juicy Baneling connection and borrow his tanks on top of everything else, and I can definitely see a scenario where Oreo turns this around and wins, but it's getting less and less likely by the minute.
Yeah, exactly. As he goes for a bit of a last hurrah here, the Banelings do get some decent connections, but there just aren't enough units. There isn't enough army here for our Zerg player. The Hydras go down, the Ling Bane goes down, the Lunkers are going down, the Snipes are just too good. And Oreo just lost 3 hatcheries in the blink of an eye.
Pretty much. I blinked and I missed it entirely.
I did as well. Mate, I can't wait to embrace the sweet embrace. I wasn't gonna go there, but yeah, the sweet embrace of death, puppy. Oh my god. As the Zerg Hope is struggling here against Azure. Again, I'm very impressed with how Azure's been able to play this out. Very stylistic, I almost want to say, to just keep his worker count low and, yeah, find success anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what have we always been saying? Like, 40 SCVs, that's all you really need.
Yeah, mules, puppy, mules.
mule. Yeah. Okay.
Just mule forehead. You know, we have a little bit of lunker harass here on the right hand side. Going to deny some mining time here, but will eventually be cleaned on up. And that's was the second last lunker. That's it, GG.
Azure takes game number 2, and we'll go all the way up to match point here in this best of 5 qualifying match here. Any 1 second.
Oh, good, man. Oh, good. GG. Well played. Oh, that is not what I. Hold on. Give me the McCree. There we go. As Yaku is just going to need 1 moment, but Azure takes a 2-0 lead in this series, 1 game away from qualifying, and this is a result that I was not expecting. Historically, Azure has struggled against Oreo. Historically, I want to say that Oreo has won the majority of their series, especially in recent years, but Azure is fighting back, again with a very different style, a very different outlook, something that Oreo, it looks like, is very unfamiliar with, and he has to try and adapt to. Again, this low worker count style. And to be fair as well, there have been a couple of questionable fights here and there for Oreo, where he's been having a hard time just trading well, or even just splitting up his army and getting into the mid to late game unscathed. More often than not, we do see him falling a little bit behind instead.
Yeah, I can't really fault Oreo for having a little bit of difficulty with this style. I mean, again, it has just about been a month since he's come back, but this is also a very, very new style. I feel that we're getting, at least in the region. It really feels like this isn't something that somebody like Seether or Runamuck, or I was gonna say Hut, but you know, he is full-time AoE now. Yeah, not really something that any other Terran player has really shown off recently. And yeah, I know he has been theorycrafting a lot with NXZ, old mate Royan, on how he should approach this matchup, but this isn't. I can't imagine this is something that really came up in those sessions.
Yeah, I can't imagine so either. I'm struggling to think like if this is intentional or not from Azure. Is he intentionally cutting workers? At a certain point, I have to think so.
I believe he is. Yeah. I want to believe that he's seen the truth.
Maybe he has. Maybe he's been listening to Twitch chat, mate. It's been working.
Yeah. That's all you need. Just mule for it. As we continue our series now on Moondance, we're in the top left-hand corner map, starting all the way in the top left-hand corner. We have our red Zerg player coming out from the land of Brisbane. He, of course, is going to be representing our very own team, the CranKy Ducklings. In a little bit of trouble here, but let's see if he can. Turn it around. He is gonna make his opponents go, uh-oh, it's Oreo.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Moondance, we have the Australian Terran player himself, representing himself. The Madman is teamless. The Madman is 1 game away from qualifying for PAX Australia. PAX Arena StarCraft 2 Championship Qualifier number 1. Can he get through this qualifier? It is Azure.
I just realized I never learned the official name of the tournament. I've just been calling it the land at PAX Super South.
The Super South. The Super Down Under, man.
Yeah.
This is why you're not allowed to come up with tournament names, okay? We always have to we have to refine
Roach Rush!
Yes, as
coming out from Oreo.
Let's go. We had a pool first opener from Oreo. I was curious as to what this was going to be, and here we go. Oreo has had enough about this. He's had enough taking it lying down. He wants to be the aggressor. He wants to be active. We are on Moondance, the shortest rush distance map in the entire map pool. Roaches are coming.
Let's go.
Let's go. As Azure actually once again goes for a faster base. He is skipping his Reaper, by the way, so he actually has nothing on the map to scout. Even if he did, Oreo does send his Lings the long way around to avoid any even SCV scout, and Azure has no idea what the hell is going on.
5 roaches are already on the way. It is going to be just a 1-1. So far coming out from Azure. He's not going into any insane 2-on-1s just yet, but he still needs to be aware of the possibility of what's coming his way. You know, he needs to know that he needs to throw down a bunker. He needs to know that he needs to get... Oh, no. I was going to say he needs to know that he needs to get Banshees.
Yeah.
That's a double factory.
Exactly. This is going to delay the starport because it's not a 1-1-1. We will not have a Banshee to defend. We have more add-ons. We literally have 1 unit for Azure. That one unit is this 1 Marine.
And it's not even in a bunker or anything. The roaches finally reveal themselves, and you know, Azure has a lot to do to try to repair and body block, to say the least.
He really does, but you know what? This reactor is not going to finish. The boys are here to try and keep whatever they can alive. Oreo is not link flooding behind this. I feel like if he was link flooding behind this, he would just end the game. It would all be over. But he is droning. He doesn't want to throw this away. He is instead just focusing on more economic damage, and boy, is he getting some.
14, 15, 16 SCVs, 17 have gone down.
And counting.
Everything's going down.
Yeah, eventually this is going to get cleaned up, but again, the damage has been done. Azure is down to 8 SCVs compared to the 30 drones of Oreo. The damage is real. Everything was scattered. The double factory was scattered as well by Oreo. And now Azure, I don't know if there's a way for him to really come back from this. The only real way is that if Oreo does leave him completely alone for the next 5 minutes.
You know, just mule forehead.
Just mule forehead. And to be fair, there are ways to force your opponent to give you that time that we need for Azure. The problem is that usually is in form of counterattacks. We don't have a medevac, sorry, we don't have a starport for med extra drops. We don't have Hellions for mass run-bys, like this hyper-mobile army. We don't have anything. We have a cyclone.
You know what we do have? Some boys.
We have some boys, yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yaku, you're not wrong.
I get that a lot.
As the Cyclone does pick off 1 Overlord in the end, but now Roaches and Lings are on the way, and I feel like if Oreo does go for a counterattack soon, then he may just find very little resistance indeed. For now, he's just respecting his opponent, taking this as normally as he can.
Yeah, going up to 3 hatcheries, which is what he is wont to do, typically. And yeah, from here we are starting to see Oreo push out once again, though. A lot more links coming to support this push.
Yeah, let's go. We do have a follow-up push coming on the way. Oreo is still droning up behind this, so he's not all in by any means, but he doesn't need to be all in. That's how far behind Azure is right now. The Lings are setting up for a bit of a wraparound here. The wall currently quite a solid defensive position here for Azure, but he only has a single tank behind this. If that tank falls, yeah, it could be over.
I'm just waiting to see the biles get thrown down on top of that tank. For now, Oreo just using them on targets that are a little bit safer for the time being.
Yeah, exactly. Just taking out a couple of depots here and there. Supply blocking Azure. He may have to go for a bit of a cooldown supply drop or something along those lines. For now, just kind of stuck here. Does have 2 tanks, both on the low ground.
Yeah, a little bit more exposed, but a lot closer to their front lines, so they're still going to be useful.
Boy. Really is. He is. And Oreo actually going to try and find a way in once again. The Hellions were a little bit out of position, but Oreo doesn't want to pull the trigger. He doesn't want to throw away his army, not yet. He wants to try and chill out here with his Link Ravager, just poking and prodding, keeping these Blue Flame Hellions at home as Azure, I mean, he did open up double factory. He is going into that. Oh no, he's not. Oh my god.
Somehow, what?
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay,
so it's a 2-2-1 coming up from it.
Yeah. I mean, he did invest into Blue Flame, which is why I assumed he was gonna just go for it. But no, he's actually transitioned more of a hybrid style.
Huh. Not something that most people advise, as you know, Bio and Mech are two very different styles, and if you play towards the strengths of one style, you're almost getting the worst of both worlds with this kind of production, but still. A lot of drones got roasted. Good start.
Yeah, a lot of drones did get roasted, 7 in total. Not bad at all. A nice kind of first step here on the road to victory for Azure, as we have a full scout off, and this is pretty important. Oreo confirms, you actually have Raxes. You are not playing Mech.
I should get Banelings instead of, instead of Roaches.
There you go. And as you said, the Banelings are on the way. We already have 1-1. We have Baneling speed. Oreo is double expanding, getting his 4th and 5th and 6th base on the way. Because why not just get further and further ahead?
This game gonna slow down from here. Should we prepare for that moment? I do kind of think that Oreo is just, like you said, covering his tracks and making sure that he's in a position that is completely unthrowable, but I do worry that if he gives Azure too much time, then Azure will just bounce back with a huge hybrid marine tank army once again.
Exactly. Like, we'll see if he can pull it off here. I mean, we are on Moondance, so it is one of those maps where you can turtle up on 3 bases very easily. So we go, the 3rd base is already on location for Azure. He can even take a fast 4th base behind this as well. I say fast, I mean, we get a 4th period. So yeah, he's kind of going for the right steps here to come back. But Oreo likewise is also going for the correct steps to make sure he maintains a very solid lead.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how much closer Azure gets if Oreo gets further and further away. And I do appreciate that he is not neglecting his tech.
Yeah, you know, Hydrogen's already done, Infestation is done as well, so we can get into Lurkers, we can get into a Hive if we so choose. You can argue that Oreo really just needs to stay on Link Bay and Hydra and he should be fine, and you're not wrong with that, but you know, if the game does progress longer, then we do want a little bit more tech sometimes.
Yeah, tis key.
Exactly. Meanwhile, I love it as he's smiling in the chat, chugging away on his hopium. If somehow Azure comes back in this game, he's a literal god. I agree. Like, he's down 60 supply right now. Like, he's been on the road to recovery. You know, he's doing his I almost said initials. I don't know how rehab works. Okay.
Rehab?
Yeah, road to recovery.
Road to recovery, yeah. It's 12-step.
There you go, the 12-step program. He's like on step 3 right now. He's getting there. Maybe 4, maybe 5 actually.
Yeah, he's on. What's it called?
What?
I've never been to.
That's what I mean.
AA. I've never been to AA.
He's up to cold. So he's up to acceptance. You know.
Cold turkey. You know. Yeah. He's up to denial.
I don't think denial is a path of recovery, Yaku. I don't think that's what you want to be doing.
Huge wraparound here on top of just about every single siege tank. Not a lot of Banelings though, so the Marines are actually getting a lot of shots in. Doesn't seem to matter much in the end though. Oreo just has such a huge army supply lead that he can do whatever he wants and still win.
Exactly, it's so huge, it's massive, it's throbbing, it's rolling in towards the natural, in towards the main base as well. The army falls, the boys are being pulled, 12 SCVs go down, and Oreo, that was only half his army. We have another half behind it. Roaches, Ravagers, Hydras, it's all coming on in. We even have a Greater Spire behind this. So unnecessary. GG gets called, and Oreo fights back, taking a game in this series.
Woo, lordy.
Ugh.
Once again, just really showing how important that early game momentum can be and how important it is to scout, really.
Oh, exactly. Scouting is important. Being greedy, you can't afford to be greedy like that at this level of play without being punished, especially in the middle of a best of series. Azure was able to pull it off in game 2, but here in game number 3, he could not. Oreo is too wise to it. He does adapt. And now, can he pull off the reverse sweep? Or can he at least take it all the way to the ace match? We'll find out as we get ready for game number 4.
Oh boy.
And we have our map.
Yeah. Hydrate your hydras, everyone. What we have this time.
Exactly. Hydrate your hydras, stretch your roaches as we're getting ready for our next game. Oh boy. As we see, even some more people trickling into the chat as well. It makes sense. We mentioned it earlier, but Pig is confirmed to actually go to the main event itself, and to cast PAX Melbourne on site live in front of that lovely camera. So yeah, I'm sure he's curious as to who is going to make it through to that event.
Yeah, well, the good news is your brother's already confirmed.
True.
Qualified.
Yo, exclamation mark B in the chat if you want to have a look at the bracket yourself on Wikipedia or on the ESL bracket. Shout out to Pig's little brother, as well as Probe for already qualifying.
Yeah. This is to determine one more slot here. Again, there are 4 total today and 4 more tomorrow, and one of those 4 spots is going to be determined right now as we continue our best of 5 qualifying match here on Tropical Sacrifice. We're here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, swinging all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We have our red Terran player coming out from the land of Brisbane. He is the man with a harpoon himself. He is representing himself as he's currently teamless. He is Azure.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Tropical Sacrifice, we have the Australian Zerg player himself representing the CranKy Ducklings. It is Oreo.
I would not be opposed to just 2 more roach rushes. Maybe not on Tropical Sacrifice itself, but you know.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, you know, we're in for the long haul. We're in for the end game, Yaku. You know, we're strapped in.
We're committed.
We're committed to going to the ace match. It's happening, Yaku. It's happening. I can feel it.
I can't feel anything anymore.
No.
Stop functioning. Stop functioning. The brain.
We'll get there, Papi. We'll get there. It's okay. We're getting through it together, Yaku. We're getting through it together.
Yeah. And we're making chat get through it with us.
Exactly, as we have exceeded the 4-hour mark. We're at 4 hours and 30 minutes, Papi. I believe Sentimental Latino already finished. I haven't even checked the results.
If it didn't, then I would have to be wondering what the hell is going on there.
True.
What did it start, like 2 hours before we did?
An hour before we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my god. Just double checking. Master actually won that tournament. Oh my god. Master.
Yeah, Master on the up and up. Roach rush again from Oreo.
Let's go.
You love to see it.
Mate, Oreo, he's looking out for us, okay? He knows how dead we are after casting all morning. He knows how little sleep Yaku is on right now. And he's doing us a solid as we do have a Roach Horn on the way. Meanwhile, Azure did go for his regular Reaper expand. He's here across the map. Ooh, dancing with death, playing with fire right now. Doesn't want to lose his Reaper. And we'll see if he's going to be able to get that scout off in the main.
Not just yet. Reaper still shucking around, but again, I do have to worry about Roach rushes on Tropical Sacrifice itself. I mean, you talked about it a little bit earlier in the tournament where even if this goes completely unscouted, it's still a massive rush distance that the Zerg player has to traverse. There are still so many ramps that the defending player can take advantage of. It's a little bit trickier to pull off unless you really commit from the start of the game to go for a dedicated roach rush timing.
Yeah, and I worry as well just because I feel like that's god, this gets scattered immediately, by the way, by this Reaper. Azure is fully aware. I was gonna say that the downside as well is the fact that previously in this series we saw Azure being a little bit more greedy, going for, you know, CC first openers or faster third CC before starport. Here we see more of a straight up 1-1-1, and we are gonna have access to Banshees as well, so Azure is gonna have a more secure way to deal with this. But at least he's stuck on one base economy, at least.
Yeah, that's definitely a plus here for Oreo.
As 9 roaches are making their way across the map to chip away at this natural. They're only Hellions to defend for the time being, so they're not really going to be able to do too much here. I doubt Oreo is going to be able to get a depot or break into the main, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, this time the bunker is in a much more fortified position here. It will be covering the entire ramp of Azure's.
Yeah, even got a second bunker as well. So you could argue definitely over defending, maybe overreacting, but Azure, you know, we can always salvage. Like, it's not the biggest of deals to make additional bunkers as long as we're able to recuperate those losses in the end. As Azure is going to be able to move out across the map. Oh, it actually runs into those roaches a little bit. Oh, thankfully roaches don't notice.
Yeah, you just turn around right at the last second. And we're getting into our normal early game from here. The Zerg player just taking up, getting the lair as quickly as possible. 10 player, doing whatever they can.
Yeah. You know, 1-1-1 into that third TC. We're not seeing any kind of committed 2-base play like we saw earlier today in game number 1. Again, Tropical Sacrifice doesn't really lean towards or lend towards that kind of style, so it makes sense for Azure not to really try and force that to happen. Instead, just kind of checking the edges of the creep here, just seeing for or poking around, looking for any weak points. Oh.
Speaking of weak points, there was a little bit of a shrink in the armor there for Oreo, but the Queens were able to reposition quickly enough to chase away all of these Hellions with, yeah, just going back to basics.
Yeah, so far that is where we are headed. Nothing too fancy with this. We're not seeing any kind of weird mech style coming out in Tropical Sacrifice like we saw from Piglet. Not at all. Meanwhile, because of this, Oreo is more than happy to get into a longer game as well. So even though Oreo's had a bit of a hard time this series, even though he had a really rough start, he is undeterred getting into a longer game, getting into a macro game. He may have started off with a bit of a roach push, but he wasn't overcommitted. He didn't want to throw things away.
Yeah, it feels like right about now he's figured out how to deal with Azure style, his low econ kind of way that he plays.
Up!
So now he is willing to play out longer games. That was a cancel right at the end, and thankfully for Oreo, he didn't lose his drone either.
Mate, that's one of the first times that we've seen a cancel and not a kill on Oreos for it, like this series. Like, I was getting really concerned there towards the end, but thankfully the timing, the control was on point. The micro was what it needed to be. I wish I could say the same for these transferring drones. As 5 drones go down to these Banshees, at least one of them gets picked off.
One Banshee on its own doesn't have quite the same amount of utility that 2 Banshees do. Azure, I'm keeping my eye on the production tab, but I still don't see a third base out from him yet. Am I? Okay, there we go. Yeah. But ACC before Starport.
After Starport. But like
after Starport.
It was like right after Starport.
Wait. Which map are we on?
We're on Tropical Sacrifice.
Right. Yes, okay. And this is qualifier number
1. Stay with me. Yaku almost there.
Okay. It's the 1st of October. Okay. It's Saturday.
What are you saying right now? What are you saying?
It's coming back to me. It's all coming back to me. It's Saturday today.
We're casting StarCraft, Yaku. We're casting.
Really?
It's a Blizzard game from 2010. But meanwhile, Azure, he does push out across the map here with his tanks. Is going to hit a bit of a timing here with +1 stim and not quite combat. Just +1 stim and just +1 and stim. Going to be able to force himself up this ramp, but Oreo, he goes for the full surround. The tanks are left completely exposed. They go down immediately, and without the tanks, there's not really much else here to support this bio.
Yeah, great use of files. Azure is fighting from high ground, but I don't think that's going to be enough to save him. A lot of his Marines are still alive, though.
Yeah, the Banelings came in from a really weird angle, so we actually didn't really get too many Baneling connections at all. The Bio Army, takes a Baneling to the face, though, and Oreo shuts this drop down.
And with that, he once again has freedom to tech up and pretty much do whatever the hell he wants right now. Infestation pit has been thrown down, as well as a couple of drones. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a Hydralisk den and the Lurker den after that.
Yeah, like I'm not surprised that Oreo has been a little bit tentative when it comes to droning up, just because of how this series has been progressing and because he's up against the wall. But I do hope he commences soon. Like, we should be seeing a 5th base shortly. We should be seeing droning up at least until 80 plus workers. I'm concerned that Oreo is staying on a bit of a lower count too soon, and because of that, he's not really taking as much of an economic lead as he could be, making full use of this map control.
Look, he's meeting the low econ style with a low econ style of his own. Is what I choose to believe here. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think he is overestimating Azure's map control at the moment, and because of it, he is just hurting economically. Well, he's not exactly hurting economically, but he's not thriving like he could.
Yeah, not thriving like he could, not thriving like he should, as these drops are now going to be as annoying as possible. Oh my god! Biles actually connect with the medevac, but we are 1 bile short of taking it down. At the same time, another drop here towards the top left, trying to poke in once again. Not really finding too much headway here, as Oreo has been able to nicely split up his army here towards his north and southern bases. But he still can take the 4 hatcheries. He needs a 5th. I don't know how much more I can kind of express this. It's kind of weird to see both players on even bases.
Unless he's playing the all-in from here.
I mean, it does feel that way. We do see that Oreo is finally expanding towards the south. He was trying to take a hatchery up here towards the northern portion of the map, but the double drop did deny that. Meanwhile, as he expands, Azure, very quick to scan.
Yeah, he's got his eyes on top of just about everything right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Azure pushing out once more tanks.
Yeah, the scan basically confirming the next target here for Azure as he pushes out across the map. Unfortunately, very little creep here, very little foresight from Oreo to recognize the army is rotating over, and I think we're going to be seeing a cancel.
Yeah, we've got to. I mean, I don't really see a way for Oreo to keep this alive. Ooh. We don't see a cancel. In fact, we see a kill.
We see a kill, not a cancel, but maybe it was worth it because the entire army is going to get engulfed here. It is going to get surrounded. Every single tank is going to go down, and now it is go time for Oreo. He has to pull the trigger. He has to maintain this momentum. There are 0 tanks here back at home. There's 1 tank on the high ground, but is that going to be enough? At the same time, double drop is actually going to divert the attention of Oreo away.
Yeah, he's doing such a good job of distracting Oreo, honestly. Like you said, if he just moved in with the rest of his army, I think he would have been able to win the game, but he is playing this out a bit more cautiously, which you can't really fault him for.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be able to catch some reinforcements, gets another tank for free. The Banelings are rolling on forward. Can we find those connections? So far, the Marine splits are pretty good, but the Banelings get in.
And they will take out most of the bio count and just about all of the SCVs by this base.
Yeah, but it did cause a lot of Hydras and a lot of Ravagers. In the end, Oreo is forced to pull back. He did deal a lot of nice economic damage, but he needs an army now to hold, to defend against what Azure is pushing out.
My, how the turns have tabled. Azure now going for a bit of a counterattack of his own. I'm still worried that he doesn't have any anchor units here, you know.
Look at the army supply.
No mines or no tanks,
it's the
but still, yeah, it's insane.
It is insane until I recognize, who's playing right now? Azure or Seether? Because we have how many exactly? 12 medevacs available to Azure. We're lacking a little bit in the Marines. He doesn't have his entire army here across the map. 2 tanks, once again, are getting picked off, and the Banelings are rolling on in.
Nicely defended for now.
Exactly. Oreo, I feel like, was a little bit lucky that these reinforcements were not rallied across the map. They're still here at home for Azure, and because of his superior economy, like, he's just been able to get more governors up and running, to get more bio up and running as well.
A lot of his army is in the medevacs, though, literally and figuratively. A lot of them were loaded in. The Lunkers are now out. Time to smosh.
Yo, let's go. With the power of the Lunker, even though Oreo is behind in supply, he could hold on.
Yeah, just needs to make sure that he secures the high ground. He needs to make sure that he doesn't engage Azure on his own terms.
Yeah, exactly. As we have nice target fire, 2 lurkers go down before the big engagement, but we still have plenty more lurkers where that came from. Azure gonna have a hard time pushing into this concave without sustaining a lot of losses. He has to be careful when he stims on forward.
Yeah, that's not exactly the time to do so.
Exactly, and Oreo's up against the wall. He now has 92 workers, by the way, but again, I think it took him too long to get here. I think it took far too long. Ling Bane is gonna roll on forward. Actually, good Bane connections.
Yeah, but look at the... Well, I was gonna say, look at the Oreo supply difference, but then once again, I realized that most of it is in these medevacs.
Yeah.
Funnily enough. So yeah, just Lings rallying to reinforce can absolutely make a difference.
It's one of those things where sometimes the soup, it does indeed lie, and this is a period of that. Usually it lies when roaches are involved, but here there's just so much supply in these medevacs. The numbers can sometimes be a little bit deceiving, but you know what? There are no more lunkers. The Vipers are trying to gather energy, but they're exposed. No!
Yes, lunkers really don't lie.
As 2 Vipers go down, the base is forfeit. It looks as if Oreo has been broken. He's trying to muster a defense, but he only has a single lurker and a single Viper back at home.
Yeah, despite getting all his tech, he hasn't quite been able to spend... He hasn't quite been able to spend all of it just yet. Now he has. 9 more lurkers are on the way.
Yeah, this entire middle line is going to go down. Like, Oreo, ooh, as they all stack up as well. Oreo did such a great job today, taking down Runamuck and Seether 2-0, going all the way to the ace match against Piglet as well. I know that he wasn't even upset with how that series had gone. Like, he's very proud of how he performed against Piglet. But here against Azure, like, a very unexpected result here. A very unexpected way for things to turn out. We have a blinding cloud, doesn't connect with the army. Every single lurker is going to go down. Oreo has nothing left.
Nothing at all. Good game. Congratulations is called. And Azure will take that series 3-1 to qualify for StarCraft 2 LAN PAX Australia Super South Arena. GG. Even my phone is GG, well played coming out here from Azure with a very new style, at least a new style to him coming out here.
Yeah, GG, well played. Congratulations to Azure. Breaking the streak, by the way. I should have been looking this up, actually, but I want to double check the history between Azure and Oreo, because from my recollection, we usually cast them whenever they play against each other. I feel like Oreo has been historically just advantageous for a long time. Despite there being like a little bit of a rivalry between them. Quickly checking, yeah, Oreo 4 out of 5 series in 2021. So has in recent history just had a dominant performance over Azure. But here in 2022, that has changed.
Tables are starting to turn a little bit, yeah.
Wow. Again.
Yeah, this is a result that hasn't happened in a very, very long time. I mean, I wonder how much of that can be chalked up to Oreo's hiatus and how much of that can be chalked up to Azure showing off a bit of a newer style here today. But regardless, I think that this bodes well for for the future of the region.
Yeah, I do think that Azure, I also want to believe that he was able to conquer and overcome some phobias or fears. I know that he's had a really hard time mentally against Zerg, specifically the TVZ matchup, kind of like Starduck in PvT, right? Where like before the series even starts, sometimes Starduck mentally is already defeated, playing against Terran. Likewise, I feel like the same was Azure playing against Zerg. He's had a lot of strong feelings about that matchup, but here again, approaching things a little bit differently, a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical. Yeah, he did really well for himself. I was legitimately impressed by how Azure played.
As was I. I mean, it's not specifically. Oh, okay. I mean, not specifically with
The God of
not
Thunder is upset,
specifically just because he was, not specifically just because he looked to be very much in form here, but also again because he switched things. We normally know Azure as being that kind of jack of all trades Terran, at least in the ANZ region, but today he leaned a little bit more into one particular style and was able to pull it off very, very well. At least in the games that we cast it here against, against Oreo. We didn't quite get to see what he did against Starduck or what he did against Probe either. But I mean, even then, he took a map of a Probe, so that's a really good sign, I think.
It really is. It really is. So Azure just coming out of left field. I know he has been grinding a lot in recent times, recent weeks, recent months. And that's really paying off here. So yeah, congratulations to Azure, and a very special congratulations as well because Yaku, you were right.
Yeah,
you were correct.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Chappie.
You owe me a pizza. Chappie is the third player to qualify, actually qualifying before Azure did here by beating, first off, Seether 2-0, and then Pez 3-2. Everybody's happy, including me.
Including Chappie.